This episode of Heroes of the Horn is brought to you by Craig Karst, an Ashman of the Black Tower. And when the blood was sprinkled on the ground where nothing could grow, the children of the dragon did spring up, the people of the dragon, armed to dance with death. And he did call them forth from the wasted lands, and they did shake the world with battle. From the Wheel of Time, Suleiman, chief historian at the Court of the Sun, the Fourth Age.
Welcome to Heroes of the Horn, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Sir Matt.
And I am Sir Ezra. Welcome to our Wheel of Time book club. The horn has sounded, and we have answered the call. Today we are covering The Shadow Rising, Part 8, Chapters 50 to the end of the book. And in our Village Council, we will be discussing a lot of things. The top 5 Eye of the World characters, Lanfear Part 1, and the Camelin Conundrum.
Yeah, it's going to be a big episode today, so I hope everybody is ready. Wow, what an ending, let me say. I think I'd said at the start of this book, I was like, okay, well, yeah, it's going. Then again, this book reminded me a little bit more, I think, of Eye of the World, where I was like, once you get closer and closer to the end, you're like, okay, this is going. So
yeah,
right now, I would say this is my third favorite of the 4. Mm-hmm. Only because I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to unseat the Great Hunt because the ending is just so amazing. And then the Eye of the World is just so iconic and so big, and it's well paced all the way throughout. And so I think that's why I have this 3 of the 4 so far.
Yeah, I like that. I mean,
but I think it might stay towards the top as we begin adding. I don't see it. I don't really see it moving far down. But who knows?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Let's say your top 3 stay the same, and it's the third out of 14 books or whatever. That's huge. It's good. Yeah, I think you're gonna move around, and I like that. I like that you go and give kind of your ranking as to where this fits in as we compare it back to other books, because it's a lot. It's one of those things I kept kind of saying, just got to hang in. It's a slow build, but things just build and build and build. And then by the end of this, I feel like we're there at Al-Qadar, and we're over all the Aiel, and they're out there doing their thing, and stuff is just happening left and right. And you're like, what is going on? 1 second we're here. The next thing you know, we're opening a doorway, and boom, we are jumping back to Rudion. Like, stuff is hitting fast. It's hitting quick, and it's exciting. This is like one of those real exciting endings to the book, and the Forsaken are back, and there's things going on there. So yeah, it's cool. I can't wait to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's dive in, let's head on over to our sort of Village Council here, where today we're going to be talking about our top 5 characters from the Eye of the World that might not make it into season 1 of the Wheel of Time TV show. So this could happen for a number of reasons. What all is actually going to be in the Eye of the World, or let's say season 1, I should say. What's going to be in season 1? What are they going to save so they can save that person for a casting for season 2? There might be some storylines with the characters that we've already cast that get expanded upon further than would be the first book, maybe the second book. Who knows? They did have time off, so maybe their original plan was, hey, let's shift this around, easier to get people in with COVID restrictions and everything. And now you have different actors on different recording schedules and things like that. So who knows there? So for whatever reason, let's talk about the characters who we think they might save this person for later, or they might get blended, or they might get scratched. So, let's go ahead and start with number 5.
Yeah, and I put these in a particular order, so we're going to go 1 or 5, and then count to number 1, because what we've learned so far is that Shadar Logoth seems like it's going to be a really big deal. We've got the dagger promo. We've got concept art about it. We know it's a big deal in the books. It has to be important. It's going to really draw, I think, a large audience in. Like, what is this creepy, scary, abandoned ancient city that has Mashadar kind of flowing through it? So we're kind of thinking, episode 1, you also have to really establish what I'm going to call like the Shire, right? You have to, what are the hobbits always fighting for? They're fighting for the Shire. So what are Emond's Fielders fighting for? They're fighting for Emond's Field, right? They're fighting for the 2 rivers. So in episode 1, you've really got to make Beltane, and you've got to make this town, this nice little, you establish a real good home place that you're going to go out and fight for and protect. So that's episode 1. We think then they're going to be traveling towards the end of that into Shadar Logoth, and I kind of think we're skipping Baerlon. So if we're skipping Baerlon, at number 5 we have Master Finch, who is the Master Fitch, who is the innkeeper at the Stag and Lion, which is destroyed. And it's kind of a nice stopping point in the books because our characters are learning about the cities. They're learning about like, wow, this is huge. They think Baerlon is huge. Then they get to Camelin later and they're like, okay, just kidding, right? This is even bigger. So I think it's he's a character who's probably going to have to go. You can't get every innkeeper in here. We do know that Master Gil from the Queen's Blessing is going to be in this, and so that'll seem to be kind of give us that inn type of vibe. I think they're going to be out in the wilderness, just kind of working their way towards Shadar Logoth. So
right
now, so 5 also goes with 4, and then I'll mention 4, and then Matt and I can talk about these. But Dane Bornhold is one of the White Cloaks that we meet, and we meet him in Baerlon as well. So I think if you're skipping that, you're skipping him, and also, interestingly enough, he hasn't been cast. Jeffrem Bornhold has. So I kind of think we might skip Jeffrem's son for now and come back to him. So.
Right. Another thing to keep in mind is if you look, we've looked at a lot of the answers, and we've done a YouTube video of this where they break down these Wheel of Time Twitter, where they show whatever the next piece of concept art is, or footage or audio clip or whatever. Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, has gone on and he's answered he does 10 questions, and people get asked whatever they want, and he'll pick a few and answer them. And he's one of the things that I think caught our eye was when he's talked about, like, a lot of the questions have been, how are you going to fit everything in? And he said, obviously we can't directly involve every character, but there will but we want to pay homage to the series. So there will be a lot of characters who may look a certain way. A character who this is not even season 1. This is Great Hunt territory. We've said that we probably don't think will happen is Huron.
Sure.
This isn't somebody in our list here.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about Eye of the World.
Yep.
But Huron is a character who, he's with Ingtar and he's with that group. It's likely that there actually will be somebody who looks like Huron is described, but he may not have speaking lines. He may not be, addressed and be part of the thing. And I'm a sniffer and all of this stuff. That may not happen. But one of the things they've said is that that they want to name as many extras as they can. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times it's like guard 1, guard 2. And right. He said, he's like, that would be he didn't use this example. I'm creating this example. But so that's why I'm saying somebody like a Huron, let's say. Yeah. So it's like some guy, whoever the extra is, that it would be somebody with Ingtar's group is credited as Huron. So some of these characters still may show up, but they won't have a role. You may be, if we're at an inn, we see an innkeeper and he has one line of like, what can I do for you today? Or something like that. That doesn't mean he's going to be introduced as Master Fitch and, some of the things like that.
Exactly. When you could have, and I mentioned Basil Gill being an innkeeper who is cast. So if you take one of Master Fitch's kind of lines and you use it with him, then you've kind of taken that character and you've molded him in with another really good innkeeper that we like, because we like the Stag and Lion, and money is left and sent back by Moraine after it's burnt down and stuff. It's one of those first kind of stopping points, and I think for some folks it's gonna be hard to see that cut. It might not be. We're just speculating, but based on Rafe's comments, it seems like you can't stop at every single inn, all these different locations, and so something has to go. And I just thought it was interesting that Jeffrem Bornhold has been announced as a casting, but not his son. Eamon Valda for the White Cloaks has also been announced and not Dane. I think Dane's going to. You need a wave to come in that second season. You know what I mean? We need a new set of characters who are going to show up, and we know what happens to Jeffrey Bornhold. So if we're going to get as far as the events of, the end, like Falma or the Great Hunt, well, Jeffrey is gone. He has a great epic season 1, and he seems like a guy who represented the White Cloaks fairly well. And then we meet his son later, who's torn up about the loss of his father. So that's where we're at with Master Fitch and Dane Bornhold there at 5 and 4. And then now this one might be a little controversial. I think we're getting to a little controversy here. Character from Eye of the World that might not make it into season 1. Bale Dolmen. Which he hasn't been cast, right? I mean, I looked, I had the whole, I went to Dragon Mount and looked, and there's...
And again, keep in mind, just because they aren't cast in season 1 doesn't mean they won't show up in the series. It just may mean that for whatever reason, with turning this into a TV show, they take a character that they say, you know what, we can hold off on that person's story until season 2 or season 3. And there will be characters who show up that would show up in who could show up in season 1, but I think we can save to introduce them because that's one less actor we have to pay. There's a lot that goes into the production of TV.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of thinking, again, we have Bale Dolmen at one point. He is the guy who is carrying them, down the river, right? We get to Four Kings. Tom Maryland is attacked, and we're off and running. Do we need that scene? Is there another way to get by? Or if you have an actor, see, this is where it comes into money and trying to get a good actor to fit, like, hey, you're only going to be in for 1 or 2 episodes, but we need you, and we're going to need you more in seasons 2 and 3. You're kind of betting on the fact that the show is going to be successful and that person's going to come back again in later seasons, because Bale Dolmen's great. But we also see him at the end there at Falma when we're trying to rescue Egwene, and Nynaeve is making all these, arrangements with him to say, hey, hold up. But that's like the 2 big places where you see him in the first 2 books. And we know, being in book 4, this guy keeps showing up, and he's a very likable character. He's very interesting. He kind of ties in different regions. I think he is really important. That's the one that I think, as we were looking for 5 characters, I said, gosh, that's hard to put in there, but I'm going to go ahead and say it, and we're just going to see. Hopefully people will leave me a comment and let me know what you think about Bale Dolmen, maybe not making it into season 1. Number 2 is Elias.
Ooh.
I know, right? People are, how dare you? How dare I say this?
Right, and Elias is so interesting because we do have a casting for Aram.
Yes, we do. Yes,
and so you would assume. So you would assume that Elias would be there, but I don't know. I think that the stop with the Tinkers is going to be much shorter. Now there is even concept art for what seems like that event.
Yeah.
But the question is, do you bring him in there or do you save him for later?
Yeah. So what I'm thinking, after you leave, after the group gets separated by Mashadar and you've got Rand and Matt and Tom going their way, you have another larger group that's fractured. You have Perrin and Egwene going off and finding Elias and learning about his powers, and all he does is show he's an example of what Perrin can be. Like, he can do what Perrin can do. And all he says is, you have the gift. It wouldn't surprise me if Moiraine, if she's the main character of season 1 and we're trying to give her more dialogue and give her more bits where she seems very wise and understands things from this is like before the Age of Legends, like this is something older than even then. Like, it's just, we don't really know what this is with the kind of wolf brother bond that he has. Would Moiraine fill that role, and kind of maybe Moiraine gets to experience some of this stuff with the Tinkers, and maybe she's even there with the White Cloaks when they take Perrin and Egwene, or maybe we don't do as much of that, perhaps. It's just interesting to speculate a bit there on whether Elias would be in this, because he's not really seen a lot afterwards. I mean, it's kind of he's here. Matt keeps asking, when's he coming back?
Right.
He's mentioned. I mean, he is mentioned, but when does he step back into the story? So, yeah, I don't know that he's gonna make it in. So probably also
Okay.
controversial, but
Yeah. Well, our number one, I think, is going to be really controversial. So, our number one character is somebody who we do see, not, I would say, really briefly in the Eye of the World, considering her role going forward. Has not been cast yet, and there have been other characters that have been cast, and that is Elaine. So Elaine, obviously, huge character in the series, but Eye of the World, her role isn't necessarily huge. It becomes way bigger in book 2, and as you progress forward, obviously a love interest of Rand. And so there's a lot of reasons I think we're not going to see her in season 1. You already have Min, who has been cast, and we have Egwene. And I do think that they are going to explore the Rand Egwene, initially their sort of love interest kind of thing. Yeah. And I think they're going to push it out a little bit to when they decide we're not going to be a couple. It's like, wow, it's like a big deal because everyone's like, oh, okay, those two are probably going to end up together. Yeah. And that's one thing. Then you have Min, and again, you only have 8 episodes. There's a lot. You can't cram everything in there. We have the Lan and Nynaeve story to get to. We have everything, and so like some people, we've talked about the idea of the pacing of this. Is season one seems like it might even be to the end of the Great Hunt, which if that's the case, well, then Elaine would be in there. But then when you listen to him talk a little bit more, it's like, well, maybe that's not the case. Maybe season 1 is some sort of blend, and who knows how it's going to end. And if that's the case, I don't know that you can just cram everything in. Rafe Judkins had said, think about it like this, what are the, if we're doing 8 episodes, we have like 4 big locations. That's what you're kind of given the ability to do. So you can't be everywhere and do everything in one season.
What are the 4 big locations you're going to pick? What if you are the listener right now and you're thinking about this show, you're Rafe, Amazon says you can only pick 4 big ones. That's it. That's in your budget. Now you have to decide. Well, we want 6 or 7. No. They told you 4. So you got to pick now. So like that's the tough spot that I think that they're in, and it's why it's an adaptation, and it's gonna be different. The reason that I said Elaine, and I'm gonna get to this, we're gonna do another kind of discussion here in just a second about what happens in Camelin and how I think it's gonna be different in the show than it is in the books. But Elaine, I think, is someone who could be at the palace, is obviously in Camelin when Rand is there. We're just not going to come across her. We're going to hear a reference to her, or maybe the back of like, she and her brothers walking to the court as more gays is there. I think we will see more gays. I think we will see Elida and things, and we'll get to that in a second. But that's our kind of our top, 5 there, just characters who we think might not actually show up, that are in the Eye of the World, that might not show up in season 1.
Right. Yeah. Is Elaine going to show up in season 2? Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Sure.
I mean,
what? She might be cast tomorrow. I mean, we might put this out, and she's like, new casting now.
But she hasn't been cast as of the recording of this video at around 3:19 p.m. Pacific time on February 28th.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about those. Are there characters we missed? Characters you think maybe should be? Should some of these characters absolutely be in there? Or are there other ones that we think might not make it in that are more significant than these characters too?
Okay, Ez, got a topic we're going to talk about today, and this ties into our top 5 characters that we think might not end up in season 1, so it goes along well with that. That is the Camelin Conundrum.
Yeah, and so this is something I kind of came up here with the idea that, like, how do you get through a season 1 where you don't see the characters of Galad, Gawain, and Elaine? Those are major castings, right? I don't think they've been cast. They have not. I have a list here. You can go look at great resources, dragonmount.com. They have all the updated casting announcements, and as you go through that, we don't have any casting. I think from the perspective of Rand and Matt coming in, Rand has a few days to explore Camelin. He's talking to Basil Gill, Master Gill, the innkeeper, and he meets Loyal. So he's going to have some time there to explore. And, you know, in the books, he climbs a wall. He's trying to get a good look at Logain. Podon Fane was also there tracking him down. He crazily runs away from him and gets a higher perch. Falls in to the palace courtyard. Maybe it's not Elaine who comes by and sees him. Like, how do we get through Camelin and not see Elaine? If they're not going to cast Elaine and they're not ready to get someone for, like, again, we think season 2, sure. But if you're going to see Elaine, well, then you feel like you have to see Gawain or you have to see Galad, right? And those are really, really significant characters that they just make an appearance. So are you willing to, like, hire and pay someone, a really high caliber actor, to you know, take that on for half an episode to walk down to Morgaze and to be presented for Elida to look at him and say some ominous kind of things about him and the pattern and her foretelling, and you know
that you're locking into an 8-year contract, right? I mean,
yes.
Yes. I mean, yeah. There's a lot to it. Now, keep in mind the other thing is that again, Elaine has not been cast as of this recording. She may end up being cast, but a character who has been cast, who I think you actually could cut out of season 1 and move that story to much later, is Logain. Because
yeah, you could.
Logain is cast right now, and he was one of the, like, initial cast members announced, and his story in the Eye of the World is relatively short, and then, I mean, we haven't seen him since. That's right. And we're at our podcast where we're at right now. We're finished. You know, we're finishing The Shadow Rising, and haven't seen him. And so the fact that they've cast Logain already, I think, should lead us to believe that his story is going to be more involved or expanded or take on there's going to be a bunch of blending into Logain, and that he's going to be a bigger focus initially than he is in the books.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you said this before we started, which is like, we probably might have storylines that are postponed, like Elaine's might be postponed, and something like Logain brought forward. The reason you might do that is to elevate Moraine, which they've been talking about doing, which is Moraine being this character who is going to, Rosamund Pike is going to guide these characters through, and she needs to be the focus of this. And there's a really good reason why she needs to be. And if they're going to do New Spring stuff as well and get some of her backstory, then that way, like in the books when we first meet her and Suan, and we wonder, why is the Amerlin seat just letting Moraine run around and do things? Well, in New Spring it tells us why. So they've talked about doing a lot more of that. We've got Green Aja members cast. We've got Alana Masvani in there, who very minimal role in the books, right? And you're like, well, they must be doing a lot more in terms of building the White Tower and building their search for the dragon, if that makes sense. And then along with that, you have the false dragon. So I've actually thought about something even more controversial, which is episode 1. We might not even be, like, Beltane might be episode 2. I mean, like, that might be like we're searching, like, a lot of stuff happens in episode 1 with Moraine and other Aes Sedai and the prophecy and different things with Logain being a false dragon in Gil'adon, and they're sending Red Sisters to go get him. Moraine wants nothing to do with that. That's a false trail. She's going to go to a new place she's found, and she, you know, our main characters might show up in a very, at the end of episode 1, as she walks in and meets, you know, Matrim Cauthon, Perrin Abara, right? She might meet them at the end of episode 1, and we have all this stuff happening beforehand. And that might shock people, that might not shock people, that might be crazy, but I'm just saying it seems that way when you're not announcing, and again, we have no clue. I just kind of think like something would have been leaked, or we would have seen the casting for Elaine. They must have pushed it down the line, and Moraine can tell us a lot of these things, and we could go through Camelin just by seeing Queen Morgaze. Maybe that's an easier casting, and then Elida. Although they've showed us Leandrin, like Leandrin, the Red Sister, who is, spoilers, Black Aja. Look out, it exists. I mean, so I don't know if that makes any sense. I think there's like how do you get through Camelin? How do you go to one of the biggest, the capital of Andor, and work your way through there, see the magnitude of this? You got to show us Camelin, I feel like, as one of those big locations. And you got to see Logan. You got to see the consequences of what happens to a man who can channel the power. It has to be very clear to the audience that that a man who channels the power will go mad. A false dragon needs to be gentled, and the Red Aja will do that.
Yeah, and keep in mind another character who a big change you and I have said we think is definitely going to happen is Tom Maryland. We don't think is getting separated. In the eye of the world, they think he dies.
Sure.
Right. We don't think that's going to happen. We think he's going to end up staying with the group. Well, maybe that's why Logain's role, which I think is going to be a little bit bigger in season 1, since he was one of the first people cast. Now you can have a situation where Tom begins to tell Rand in book 2 about when we run back into Tom Maryland about his nephew and how his nephew had the power and his nephew was gentled.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So maybe that happens in Camelin, and it's Tom having conversations with Rand about my nephew was gentled, and begins to cause some distrust between Rand and Moiraine. You can take some of that and bring that here, and then that would, again, we're talking 8 episodes, 60 minutes, right? 48 minutes, however long you're going to go. Yeah. Per episode. You can't get everything in. So that's a storyline I think you could begin to bring forward with Tom, who I think will have a much expanded role, because Tom's only in the first few chapters, and then he's gone from the rest of the book because they think he's dead. But you and I both said we think that they're going to bring Tom in, and Tom is going to be he's going to go the whole way through. I don't think you're going to lose him.
Yeah.
I don't think because they've cast him, and one of the first things the first things they've shown is his guitar.
That's
and
right.
they on the Twitter, on the Wheel of Time Twitter, he's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, and I really like what you said about him helping add context to what Rand is seeing in Camelin. So this all kind of started from me thinking about Camelin. How do you navigate through there without seeing Elaine, Gawain, and Galad? But I think you're right. Tom might be there, and he can add context to that, and then add emotion to it with his nephew. You know what we might also see is we might even see the Amerlin seat actually pronounce a sentence of pronounce judgment and say, this man needs to be gentled. We might actually see him be gentled, because I think by the end of this season 1, that's a big, bold prediction. We're going to see Logain actually gentled. We're going to see sisters surround him, and we're going to see them cut him off from the one power. The reason we're going to do that is because when our favorite character, whether it's of your Emmons, not favorite, whatever, when our lead character, I like Rand a lot. I think he's going to be very likable in season 1. But by the end, when we're watching our characters wondering who can channel, which of these boys can channel, and it's Rand, and we're like, oh no, stay away from Moiraine. They will gentle you. They will gentle you. You want the audience to feel you want them theorizing, thinking, is Moiraine going to turn him in? Did Moiraine actually now find him? Are they going to control him, or are they going to gentle him? What are they going to do? So, yeah, there's kind of a lot going on there. And that's the way they can kind of breeze through Camelin and make Camelin a really cool spot, but not yet introduce those characters. We don't need to talk to Elaine and Gawain and Galad yet, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly. And one of the things you got to keep in mind is essentially, people's plot lines come down to this. There's one point, all these plot points is, how do I tell the story of this arc? I don't have to tell it in a 14, 15 season thing, because they're not going to have that. But what's the meat and potatoes of this arc, right? Rand's back and forth sort of distrust to anger to wanting to do things his way with the Aes Sedai. You can tell that in a lot of different ways. I think Tom Maryland's going to be a driver of that. And then, season 1, you're establishing these characters. Who are they? You can't with eight episodes is a lot less than 53 chapters, right? So it's just a lot less. Then in season 2, when Elaine is probably going to show up, you now have a Tom Maryland who we're established on. Okay, we get it. He's a Gleeman. He travels. He's got some history with his nephew. Well, now now you begin to start having these characters split up and do things. And we've already know who Tom is. Okay, well, Tom now, we know Tom has a history with Elaine. Okay,
he does.
and you have that. And then you'll also have the aspect of Tom has tried to convince Rand that the Aes Sedai are bad. And here he has Elaine, who is an Aes Sedai, but she's also a love interest of Rand. And does that create some sort of interesting sort of triangle and dynamic? And you can do that differently in the TV show, but still tell the overall story.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That's really cool. You're exactly right. I think Tom, with his relationship with Morghese and Caemlyn, can help fill in some of those gaps and is something that will really bond like a larger audience to Elaine when she shows up. Not only her relationship with Rand, but then with Tom, and then their connection back to Caemlyn and the early days of Queen Morghese. So, yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, leave us a comment on that. Tell us what you think. I think it's just kind of a cool, thing to think about. Like, what are they going to have to do? Put yourself in the seat of Rafe Judkins and others and say, how do you get through Caemlyn if you were, and that's the given, if you're not going to cast Elaine and her brothers. So, all right, one more thing here. Let's dive into something else here that's interesting. For our 100 companions over on Patreon, we've been doing some character studies. Okay, some character examinations. And this one's important today. This is a sampling of what that is over there. I want to give a shout out to Lord Zedley. Zedley for the recommendation. He wants us to cover Lan. So we will cover Lan on Patreon, Moraine's Warder, and we'll talk about like his progression, his path so far up through the Shadow Rising. Now today, because it as it relates strongly to the Shadow Rising Part 8, we are going to cover, so for our character examination today, Lanfear Part 1. Lanfear Part 1. We're going to track her story through the beginning all the way to this point, okay? And I want to give you kind of a quick summary, because Matt knows, significant character. Like, I mean, big deal. She's a mystery. So we have her original like release, okay? So she's been released. She begins hunting for Rand, and she's looking for Luce Theron, her lover. She's tracking him, trying to find him, looking for the effects of the tEotW on the pattern, trying to narrow that down. And we catch up with her kind of in the Great Hunt when she's disguised as Selene, and very simply, she helps Rand and Matt navigate the portal stones. Sir Matt didn't trust her out the gate. Didn't trust her, which you and Huron were like in tune there, both sniffing things out early on with Selene. So, but yeah, we find out at the end of that book, at the very end in after the Battle of Falma, Selene Lanfear appears to Min, right? Tells Min to take care of him when Rand is hurt. So that's the end of the Great Hunt. And we get into this sort of phase. So that's her first kind of disguise. So she continues to disguise herself throughout the series. So next up in The Dragon Reborn, she goes under various guises here. Let's see which one. We already went over Selene. She then tries to seduce. Well, she's seducing Rand with Selene. She then is at the tower, I believe. Yeah, Els Grinwell, in the White Tower. Now, you ready for this? We have a casting for the Grinwells, actually. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of cool. We're going to get maybe Matt and Rand passing through a farm or a little spot in the show where they're going to stop by the Grinwells. They're going to see Els Grinwell, and we're going to know out the gate early on in those episodes, oh, that's Els. When we see Els later on, we're going to be like, wow, okay, it's just Els. No, it's not, my friends. It was not Els Grinwell in the White Tower. It actually was Selene who was giving really good information to Nynaeve, Elaine, and Egwene about the belongings of the 13 Black Aja sisters there in the tower, because they've been caught. We know after the events of the Great Hunt, they were kind of caught. It's well known now that the Black Aja does exist. They captured Egwene and turned her over to the Shanchen. So yeah, that's kind of the Great Hunt into the Dragon Reborn. At the end of the Dragon Reborn, though, we do get a lot of conversation with her. She shows up. I'm sorry, no, not at the end of that. She's in it. We overhear a couple interesting things. Let me see here. Yeah, so she reveals her true identity to Rand in his chambers in the Stone of Tyr. Okay, and she shields him when she tries to convince him to rule the world with her under the Dark One. There's a point where she is revealing herself, and we catch glimpses of her in the dream world. That's what's interesting about Lanfear. She is her domain. She often says that Teleron Riyadh is her domain, and she can do a lot of things in there. She's probably the most powerful individual in that world up to this point. So we've seen her, talking to various Forsaken or dark individuals. You said at one point you caught the whole conversation with a Baalzamon, remember? And you were saying how, like, basically, essentially, Baalzamon was in something that he had said to Lanfear, had admitted that he was not the Dark One.
The Dark One,
right? Which is kind of cool. So, and that's just like one little quick line where you're like, okay, now wait a second. We thought that he was, because we beat him in Falma. He plagued us in the Eye of the World, and he's back here again. What's going? Who is this guy then? You know, if he's not the Dark One, he's already pretty powerful. So we see her there now in this book. So as we started off in this book, and we're in Tyr. Remember, we were in Tyr for quite some time. Lanfear is there trying to convince Rand to join her. So she is like Lews Therin's former lover, and we figure that out. Like, she has a soft spot for Rand. Rand has a Forsaken right there, and he even can't like kill her or do anything. Like, he doesn't really go all out and just get this rage and want to, try and beat her. She's also trying to kind of help him in a way. She shields him, lets him go. There's an attack by another Forsaken in Tyr. She doesn't aid in that, but a gray man is trying to attack and assassinate Rand, and they eliminate that. Rand will leave behind Kalendor, and she scolds him for that. Instead of taking it or giving it away or doing something, she's almost like helping him, right? And you probably figured out here in the Shadow Rising, at the end of this, she has now teamed up with Osmodian, and Osmodian and her are traveling together to keep near Rand. And her whole point, the whole plot line with Osmodian, is that she has tricked him into staying close to her. She's going to use him to help train Rand. What she says in the very beginning of this book is that you're not using 1/10 of the power that you could. You don't know what you're doing. You need a teacher. And she cannot teach him. Women cannot teach men how to use that half of the power. So she knows that she needs someone. And this is where the Osmodian Lanfear kind of alliance takes place. And they're disguised among dark friends. So it's just, that's kind of up to this point. We'll talk later on in this episode about, everything that Lanfear kind of does at the very end of the Shadow Rising. But really, I think that's sort of part one for Lanfear is we took her from being referenced in the Eye of the World, and then the Great Hunt, all of her trickery there, her disguises. She has more disguises here in The Dragon Reborn as Els Grinwell. Then in the Shadow Rising, she's disguised as, she's kind of a heavy, so before she was very beautiful as Selene, right? And then even Els Grinwell has just kind of got that young girl aspect to her. Now she disguises herself as a very an older, kind of heavier set woman that is in among Kadir's wagons with them as they're traveling through the waste. So that one, did you see that one, by the way, Sir Matt? I guess I'll ask you that. Like, did you see that was Lanfear coming, right?
I did that one. No, that one I didn't.
Yeah. And so the first couple times, like, it's a really good disguise. It seems there's something mysterious. Reading portal stones. It's almost like she hasn't quite got her game back.
Like Selene, there was something going on, right?
Yeah. And then you and even Els Grinwell.
We also had we also had the Dark Friend social in the prologue of the Great Hunt, in which there is a woman
Yeah.
speaking, and then this mysterious woman shows up, and so it's like, okay, well, I think something's going on there.
Yeah, you're almost clued in to start. Hey, don't forget about the dark friends. Don't forget to look around for these mysterious individuals who maybe know too much or act in mysterious ways. I mean, when Egwene is chasing Els and turns a corner and she's gone, she couldn't have ran that far, that quick, that fast, or whatever. How did she disappear? It's land fear. It's land fear. So. Anyway, yeah, there you go, guys. Just a quick part 1, land fear, just to catch up, just to kind of cover all of that. How did we get to this point? Because now we're introducing a new character, Osmodian. So, all right, I think we're ready to dive in here, my friend. We're ready to dive into the chapters now. So, and actually, if we're gonna do that, I got to hit my bubbly bounce. I got my drink here. I got my caffeinated drink. We've been at this all day. This has been great. We've been making the doc.
Guys, it's been a long, well, really past 24 hours. Ez and I have just been hammering out stuff, getting stuff ready, creating maps and everything, all of this stuff to get going here. So, and actually, you remember, so oddly enough, you remember I was, without power, right? We did that episode with Sir Jimmy. Which was like delayed because it was supposed to come out like the week before, and then my big snowstorm hit Portland, and we didn't have power. I didn't have power for 8 days. I didn't even have a 1 power for 8 days, right? So we recorded that like last week. So now we're recording this one to get ready for the first, and so it's like sandwiched together. So it's a lot of Wheel of Time. So I've blasted through really the last however many chapters, kind of all at once. In fact, so much that on our extended edition, we talked about some of the stuff that happened last time and also this time in this block of chapters. So really good. The ending is it's good. The ending this is really good. There's 3 kind of, I will say, plot lines going on. And so let's go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, let's dive in. I mean, so what I thought we would do, sometimes we kind of tackle these chapter by chapter, and like we'll almost go kind of in order. We might just go in arcs, and we might just save the Rand arc for. We might go, if you want to. It's up to you, because we have the chapters here in front of us, the summaries. We can kind of bounce around. If you want to, we could kind of talk about some of the stuff with like Tanchico and like Egwene and Nynaeve, and then we have basically 2 chapters of Perrin, big stuff with Perrin, and then we've got all the stuff with Rand. So it's like big. Right. It's like there's a lot. So I kind of think bigger takeaways.
It is, it is bigger takeaways. And I think what we're going to do for extended edition for the Patreon is we're going to do kind of like a bigger, like full book kind of discussion, right? And up to where are we at now with the whole story, right? Everything. Like whole kind of thing, because we were trying to figure out, like, well, what chapter do we save for extend? And we're like, I don't know that we can save any of them, man. It's all big stuff. And so so chapter 50, Traps, 51, Revelations in Tanchico, 52, Need, 53, The Price of a Departure, 54, Into the Palace, 55, Into the Deep, 56, Golden Eyes, 57, Breaking in the Threefold Land, 58, The Traps of Rudion, and so that's where we're at. Yeah. So, do we want to go
Tanchico and just do the?
Let's go with Tanchico, Elaine, and Nynaeve. And we're gonna meet somebody really cool here in a bit.
Yeah.
So Elaine, so right now we're on 51, Revelations in Tanchico. Elaine, Nynaeve, and Egyanan are in the Chamber of Falling Blossoms, eating. As they dine, they speak of a war between Arad Doman and Tarabon. When Rendra enters the room, she joins in the conversation. Elaine thinks of Egyanan and how she and Nynaeve are spending so much time with her. Not realizing who Egyanan is, they both like her very much. At the moment, Egyanan is questioning Elaine and Nynaeve about Aes Sedai in an attempt to learn why the Adam is able to call her a Suldam as well as a Damani. Egyanan then tells both of the others that she knows they are looking for someone. You have not made any real effort to keep secret from me that you are looking for someone. She is just about to start questioning them when Bale Dolmen walks into the room. He begins to say that he has found the Black Aja when he sees Egyanin. "You," he shouts. Upon seeing him, Egyanin jumps up from the chair and tries to punch him in the stomach, but he catches her wrist and they fight. Bale Dolmen comes out victorious, pinning her to the floor with a boot on her shoulder. Elaine, not knowing what to think, weaves air around both of them. What is the meaning of this? At the same time, Nynaeve demands that Bale Dolmen release Egyanin, and he reveals that she is a Shan-Chan. At first, Elaine and Nynaeve do not know whether to believe him, but when Egyanin does not deny it, they begin to realize the truth. Now, I gotta say, then it gets really interesting, and I almost feel bad, honestly, for Egyanin a little bit, because while she is a Shan-Chan, she kind of acknowledges that what they do is wrong a little bit. And you find yourself actually rooting for her in that way. She'll maybe, sort of change her way, and that the girls can come to some kind of understanding because Nynaeve and they're beginning to become friends. Right.
Right.
And see that maybe they have some more similarities than they think, because it's not like the Shan-Chan themselves are bad people. I mean, you got to view it. It's not like they, in their own mind, that it's a different culture is how I kind of view it. And in their culture, that's how they do it. Now, over here, we may say, well, that's wrong. But it's like this entire culture has this belief system that is different and challenges this other belief system. And sometimes it's like, that's how you sometimes have to go into these things.
Yeah, and that's tough, right? Is that we've had issues with that in our real world history, which is like, our culture once was this way, and we had to change it. We had to evolve and move beyond really nasty bits of our culture, technology, communication. It's interesting. You see in the Wheel of Time, as communication increases and groups sort of come together, and you learn from one another how they advance and how they make progress. And we know that from our own histories. Egyanin is an example of that. She is now basically running experiments trying to figure out are all Suldam like this? If that's the case, if this gets out, this secret could break us, and it maybe should. And then she starts to realize, like you said, she likes Elaine and Nynaeve. They're not bad. She enjoys talking to them, even though she's pumping them for information a little bit. Bale Dolmen was there at Falma, and he recognizes her. Earlier, Egyanin was like, when she was in the, forget which bar inn it was, she sees Bale Dolmen and doesn't want him to see her, because she knows that guy knows who I am. He'll out me. He's going to call me out. So now he sees her, and then word is out that she's Shan-Chan. And the rest of this, Elaine and Nynaeve, they're shocked. They're shocked that she is Shan-Chan. To move us on here a little bit more, they're suspicious that maybe she's a dark friend and all this kind of stuff. They're talking about, they again, and you can see why they would think that, they're hunting the Black Aja. Is this person in their midst trying to get more information? They don't like the Shan-Chan. There's all of that. Nynaeve really kind of takes issue with it. So Bale Dolmen talks a little bit about that. He's talking more about two of the women at the Panarch's palace that he found that he thinks are Black Aja. And he asks if he can speak to Nynaeve alone. But yeah, they basically say, tell us what's up. Next to enter then is Tom Marilyn, and he wants to speak with Nynaeve alone, saying he has important news. And Nynaeve says that she doesn't have time. They just found out about the Black Sisters in the Panarch's palace. Tom is shocked, as this is the news that he wanted to relay to Nynaeve. Elaine asks Tom if he has any information on whether Amathera could be a dark friend. Now that's interesting because they're searching for dark friends which could connect them to the Black Aja. And Elaine's thought here is that if the Panarch who's being put forward knows these Black Sisters, it might be that that person's whoever's rising to power and is being maybe lifted up by the Black Aja, that person might be a dark friend, or maybe not. And we kind of find out that they go on a rescue mission later on and will try to save her because she's not. So they sit down to talk. They narrow down that Amathera probably is either a dark friend. She thinks that the Black Sisters are normal Aes Sedai. She is their prisoner. So those are the three things that they come up with this Panarch. And Tanjiko, it's not good. Things are not good over here. There's a lot of really kind of crazy stuff. They're in the midst of this. The funny comical bit here is that each of the men keeps running in with information, trying to like be the one to tell Nynaeve, we got you, we got the information, we know what's going on. And she's just like, I don't have time for this, but actually that's really significant news. Okay, fine. And so you get all of this information as they've been out kind of gathering, different tidbits. They're talking about guarding them, and there's a bit more conversation in this chapter just about what to do. Egianen spends the night with them, so they do not let her go because they suspect her of being a dark friend. She's Shanchen. Nynaeve wants to bind her hands, and then she demands that Elaine give her the stone ring. Tarmon Gai'don telling the younger woman to wake her up in an hour after Nynaeve is asleep. Elaine and Egianen talk a little bit. Egianen says that she's terrified, and Elaine tells her that no matter how much Nynaeve hates her, they won't harm her. So, really interesting thing. Nynaeve is ticked because she loves Egwene, and Egwene was captured and an Adam was put on her.
Tortured. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that leads us into chapter 52, Need. So Nynaeve goes into the Teleron Riyadh version of the Heart of the Stone, right? She's still pondering the situation with Egianen, though her thoughts eventually shift to wondering where Egwene is. She can't help but think that if anybody could jump out at her while she is waiting, and when Egwene, Amis, and Bear arrive, it is to find Nynaeve dressed in armor. Nynaeve, embarrassed, quickly changes back into Two Rivers garments. There's always so much of like changing clothes in this. I know. In this, it's like so. It's so interesting. Egwene tells Nynaeve about the Trolloc and the Drakkar attack on Cold Rock's Hold, and they go on to say that Moraine is frustrated because Rand will not tell her his plans. She also mentions she's worried about Rand. I don't know whether it's madness or design. I could almost bear it either way if I knew. She says, I'll admit it isn't prophecy or Tarmon Gai'don that make me anxious right now. Maybe it is foolish, but I promised Elaine to look after him, and I do not know how. Nynaeve follows up by relating to Egwene that what has been happening in Tanchico and that they still don't know what they're looking for. She asks if there's any way for her to get into Amathera's dream in order to find out if she is a dark friend or not. And Bear tells her that she is foolish. When Nynaeve snaps at the wise one, she finds her hair split into two braids with red ribbons, and that she is wearing a short skirt and a loose white blouse, which is what the young girls wear among the Aiel. She struggles, but eventually manages to regain her normal clothing. So Nynaeve is seemingly desperate to get help and find out what she and Elaine should be looking for. If there's anything you can do to help, anything you can tell me at all. The wise ones tell her about a technique that centers on need. Then they tell her if she concentrates on what she needs, a way to keep the Black Aja from finding a device that control Rand, that concentrating on that need will bring you near to what you want. Concentrating on the need again will bring you closer. Each step brings you nearer until at last you are not only in the valley but standing beside where water needs to be found. They then make plans to meet in about a week. Yeah. So Nynaeve begins to concentrate on the city of Tanchico and then the Panarch's palace and then what she needs to find. She finds herself in a bedchamber located in the palace. In a bedchamber, she finds Amathera and Tamale. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the Black Sisters. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is forcing the Panarch to sing songs. Nynaeve shifts to another place in the Panarch's museum. There she finds a woman who she does not know wandering about, thinking it could be a Black Sister she doesn't know about. Nynaeve is about to embrace the source when she spies Birgit. She is distracted and the woman disappears. The hero tells Nynaeve that it was Mogadine who she had seen. They stand there and they are talking about numerous things: the wheel, Falme, and why Birgit is speaking to Nynaeve when she should not be. If it is thus that Gaidal Kane finds them and reprimands Birgit for speaking with Nynaeve. They argue shortly, and Gaidal ends up completely ignoring Nynaeve. So as we're talking, we're talking to in the dream world right now.
Yep,
Birgit Silverbow, who I will say, when I was looking up stuff before we even started this series, when we were trying to come up with a name, and actually we came up with the name Heroes of the Horn because Ez was like, well, let's just look up. Let's look up stuff. And remember, Ez has read the series. I haven't at this point. I knew a couple things like Randall Thor, whatever. And I was like, well, this girl sounds cool. Birgette Silverbow? That sounds...
Yeah.
So I click on her, and Ez is like, oh, yeah, dude, she's pretty cool. And I was like, well, she's a hero of the horn. And he's like, yes, that's it. I was like, who are these guys? These guys sound awesome.
Yeah, this is a big deal that we meet her. Actually, she's really cool. I mean, it's crazy the things that pop up in the dream world, Like, it's just wild that... like we keep learning more about what you can do there, and why are the heroes of the horn hanging out in the dream world? What's up with that? And then who are these mysterious people that she's seeing? But yeah, Gai'don Kane is there and basically tells her, "Hey, you're saying too much. Like this goes against a code, right? This goes against we are not allowed to these presets that are you cannot." Interact in this way, and she's already maybe violated some of them because she's very interested in these folks, and she's kind of keeping an eye on things. So she gets a little reprimanded from Gai'don Kane, her lover, and
that in itself was really interesting because she's talking about Gai'don Kane, and for starters, when he walks up, Nynaeve is like, "It's just not what I expected." He's kind of a short, ugly guy. And here's this sort of beautiful, legendary hero, Birgette Silverbow. But Birgette says something kind of interesting. She's talking about the pattern a little bit, and she's saying that he's usually born before me, but then I will always find him.
Yes, yeah.
That's really kind of all she kind of says on it, and then he kind of stops her. But
right. Yeah, because they're just curious on this on how does that work? How are you spun back out? What's the whole thing? She's lived all these different lives. Yeah. So that's neat. Another thing that's interesting in that chapter is that the wise ones are telling her that great need will get her to where she needs to go, and that if she focuses on need, she shifts and boom, she's somewhere. She doesn't know where, but she's thinking about this need to find the Black Aja, what takes her to certain artifacts and certain people. And so that's really interesting. Moraine in the Eye of the World, remember when she was trying to find the Eye of the World, she said, "We have the greatest need. Our need is great, therefore we will find it." It was one of those things. So I don't know if there's any, extra connection there or not, but that's the one thing I remember where they were talking about great need being a tool that you can focus on to get you where you want to go. So, yeah, man. And then you mentioned it. I always say, so there's two ways to say these names, right? It's either Moghedien or Moghedien. I don't know. I've heard it both ways in the audiobook. It's said both ways in the audiobook. And then you've got Birgette and Birgitta. You hear it both ways. So I just wanted to make that. I think Matt said them right both times. But I just wanted to say, if I say it a different way, I go back and forth. One time I was talking to you and I said Moghedien, and one time I said Moghedien, and you're like, "Who's that? Two different people?" No, it's the same person.
Yeah, I feel like I think he does say Birgetta in the audiobook, but I feel like Birgette Silverbow is who when I've heard people outside of the book say it, that's what they've said.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm fine with anyone. Yeah, we'll find out when the show tells us for sure. But I'm
they might change it. They might change it to Bridget. Maybe Bridget Silverbow.
People will lose their minds.
You never know. It's in Game of Thrones. In Game of Thrones, in the audiobook, it's Pattire, and then the show, they're like, well, that's obviously going to be Peter. I mean, come on now, it's a much easier name to say. So who knows, right? Okay, let's shift to Perrin, I think, and then we'll end with Rand. So as we actually keep going here, chapter 53, we are back to Emond's Field, right? So the women's circle and village council are all in the Winespring Inn. The women's circle is sitting around a table going over a list of supplies, while the village council is talking about battle. The men are talking about weapons. Perrin hears a woman say they can't let the men know they are living on half rations since the men need to keep up their strength. There's a message for Perrin. The White Cloaks have brought in a man who wants to talk to you. He won't talk to anybody else. He's hurt. And then they bring him to the edge of the village. Perrin, Fael, and Aram all leave the inn to speak with the messenger. They find the man surrounded by villagers and farmers with an arrow stuck in his chest. Upon learning that Perrin Golden Eyes has arrived, the man begins to speak. "We are coming, sent to tell you." He can barely finish his sentence, and the man dies. Perrin thinks maybe he means a family is making their way towards Emmonsfield for protection. Just as Fael is trying to convince Perrin to get some sleep, a young boy runs up to tell Perrin that there's something moving in the Westwood. They soon learn that it is Loyal, and Loyal is running towards the village carrying Gaul. And Perrin is like, he has this sort of internal monologue when this happens. He's like, "Loyal, you fool," like you did all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so Gaul's limping, he's hurt, right? But then they tell them they were able to close the way gate, and Loyal's carried Gaul like the whole way. There's possibly 2,000 Trollocs in the Two Rivers area, despite even the fact that the way gate has been closed. However, Luke rides up and says that it is more likely less than 1,000. He then presents Perrin with a trophy, the head of a Murdral. When he leaves, Loyal and Gaul still insist that the number of Trollocs is higher than what Luke thinks. Perrin tells Loyal and Gaul to get some sleep. "I'm afraid your bedroom has half a dozen tinkers now, but Mr. Salvir will make you something up. It's time for you to get some sleep." Upon hearing this, Fael convinced Perrin that he needs sleep as well. Perrin falls asleep and finds himself in a wolf dream. He's looking around. He sees a few things. Egwene stood among a crowd of women, fear in her eyes. Nynaeve was one of them, and he believed he saw Elaine's red gold hair. Next, he sees Mat standing naked and bound, snarling an odd spear with a black shaft that had been thrust across his back behind his elbows, and a silver medallion. A fox head hung on his chest. The window shifts again. This time he sees Rand. He's wearing rags and a rough cloak, and a bandage is covering his eyes. Perrin then finds himself wearing a blacksmith's long leather vest and no shirt, with a hammer at his side. He concentrates on the axe, thinking he's no longer a blacksmith who needs a hammer. Slowly, the hammer changes into an axe. A quiver filled with arrows appears on his other hip. He finds a longbow in his hand, and he begins to run. He finds himself 3 miles from the village near a Trolloc camp. He finds burned wood and great black iron cauldrons that hang over cook fires. Next, he circles around to Emmonsfield and finds more cook pots. As the number adds up, he realizes there are indeed 2,000, likely more Trollocs in the area. He keeps moving. He sees burned farms, the destroyed Tuathawan caravan, and eventually arrives at Devon Ride, where he finds about half a dozen Trolloc camps. Next, he goes to Watch Hill, and there's a few camps here as well. Tarn Ferry is all burned. He begins to ponder what happened, and out of the woods is Slayer, who tries to kill him with an arrow. And Perrin and Slayer are going at it.
Yes, they are.
And Perrin hits him in the chest with an arrow.
Yep.
Now, suddenly, Perrin wakes up thinking he has killed Slayer in the dream world, that he's dead. And the next thing we begin to know is that somebody is injured in the real world.
Yep.
And kind of is racing away. And who is it?
Lord
Luke. Gee, didn't see that one coming.
Wow. Oh man, yeah. That was that's kind of cool though, right? I think you were onto it out the gate. It's one of those things it's fun. See, that's I think a fun thing for the reader. Like, it's gotta be him, be him. And then when he's shot, you're like, and then when it happens with, you're like, they're connected. Or if you didn't see the connection, it's both. It's good both ways. You're either rewarded because you got it, or you're rewarded when you're like, oh, they're connected. What?
Right.
Wild.
And so I talked to a couple of people, one of which my brother Jeremy, and I sent him like a meme, and I was like Perrin realizing that like Slayer is Luke, and it's like me just like rolling my, it's like a rolling an eyes thing. But so I actually, going back on it, we do see Selene show up, and the whole time you're like, okay, there's something mysterious about her. Then at the end, she reveals herself to be Lanfear. But I don't think that the name Lanfear, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, which I could very well be. I don't think the name Lanfear is said in The Great Hunt until at the end when she says that's my real name. And it's like, oh, she's actually a Forsaken. And so here, I feel like it's kind of a similar thing where it's like, okay, here's this mysterious guy who shows up who seems to know a lot. Oh, now there's also this guy Slayer that Perrin keeps running into. Don't see Slayer and Luke in the same room. Who knows what's going on there? And so this time, I think maybe it is just Robert Jordan setting it up in a way that it's like, now we as the reader should know this, but we will get to see it. We will get to see Perrin figure it out.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if it is supposed to be surprising to us.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's a surprise for that if we're watching a character deal with that, and we're watching Perrin.
Right. Dramatic. That's dramatic irony. That's
where we kind of know something. Yeah, more
that
clues were given to us, the audience, and we kind of are in the know when our characters aren't, and that's supposed to build that suspense. So there's different ways to do it, which is, and again, that's why I say it's double reward, whether you saw it or not. You're either like Perrin going, they're one and the same. At that point, you're saying, nope, they're the same. I can't believe that. Or you're saying, I knew this all along. Wow, let's see how Perrin takes it. Let's see how Perrin reacts to it. And so, yeah, it's really cool. And we're seeing in the dream world, Perrin just saw glimpses of all his friends, Egwene and Mat and Rand and Rags and Mat, with the Ashendari and different things going on. So he's kind of keeping... You're seeing in that world that he can almost keep tabs on them and see what's up. So a lot of different powers, and he seems to be very strong in that world. So does Slayer,
yes.
but Perrin, Perrin got him. So yeah,
right. Okay, and so the rest of this big chapter,
deal.
Big deal, right? Perrin finds Faile, and he wants her to do something. He wants her to take a message for him to Caemlyn to basically say, we're under siege. We need help. We need help.
Yeah, we're surrounded. They're surrounded.
Right. And Faile says she thinks that the way she kind of views it is Perrin thinks he's going to die, and he wants to protect me. And so she says, I'm not doing it unless I get a ring. Okay. She's like, but you put a ring on it and I'll take the message. Basically.
Right, yeah, exactly.
She asked for his hand in marriage.
Yeah. Either you marry me or you don't. You kind of said something funny to me. You were texting me and you said, she flat out already had this arranged. She already made all the preparations. She had talked to so-and-so and don't worry about it, Perrin. It's already pretty much... I made sure by custom we're good.
It's really funny. I will say it is really funny because it happens and it's like, okay, right. And then it kind of happens and like it's just the way it's told. And I'm listening to the audiobook too, where she's like, well, I mean, because Perrin at first says like, well, I will marry you when I can, but it's custom. And this is again, we're talking about the customs, right? The Aiel and everybody were understanding all these different customs. He says but it has to have to wait a year. That's just how it works. And she's like, well, I kind of already set this up. I didn't know, but just in case you wanted to, just to see what would happen if this could go, and it's literally the way it's told just like that. And so it was funny. It was good.
Yeah.
It was really
good. She says Days Conger has told her that look, well, you know what? We'll probably go ahead and count the time that you had spent with him beforehand. Right. I think that's good enough time. We're going to take your word on this. Plus also war is happening. He's our leader. You know what? Let's get you guys married. In the midst of this crazy chaos, they get married and it's awesome. I think the witnesses were she's babbling, right? And Perrin gives her a kiss and just asks her to marry him. Half an hour later, Aram and Loyal standing for Perrin and Bane and Jihad for Faile. The woman's circle performs their marriage. So that is epic. It's epic. It's awesome. And good kind of moment. He needs help from Caemlyn. He really doesn't want Faile there. He doesn't think they can win. He doesn't see a way in which they can win.
Yeah. Okay, so let's actually go to chapter 56, and I think we'll just finish up Perrin's storyline. Okay,
and then come back to Nynaeve and
right, come back. Yeah, because it's really only one big other chapter. So So we're gonna just jump to chapter 56, Golden Eyes. So they are married. Perrin and Fael are married. They're in the Wine Spring Inn. They're beginning to write the letter, right? And they realize that the Aiel are back from scouting. He says there are thousands of Trollocs coming from north and south. Perrin finishes up his writing his letter, and he and Aram follow Ban out of the inn. They find all the women, children, and tinkers are gathered on the green. The women are holding weapons. Daisy Conger announces that if the Trollocs break through, that they will have to get the children out. Perrin says that he's sorry about what he did with Fael, that he arranged for her to leave before an attack. Luhan and Marin Alvear say that they would have expected nothing less and that they knew all along. Perrin leaves to go see the men and informs Ban and Tell that if things go badly that day, they are in charge of getting the women and children to safety. They argue, but he will have none of it. He then tells Aram to stay with the companions, but Aram insists of going wherever Perrin goes. On the west side of the green, the White Cloaks are sitting on their horses.
Good grief.
Good grief. And Perrin wants to know why they aren't in their battle places. Dane Bornhold tells Perrin that they are leaving, which angers the companion. Perrin tells him that if they stay and fight, he will go willingly with him. Run or stay if you can remember your men. If you need to find the courage to look at the women, Bornhold. Any one of them is braver than the whole lot of you White Cloaks. Yeah, this part is sick.
Sick. He just goes off. Yeah.
Bornhold becomes angry and informs his men that if we must die here, we will die clean. But he agrees to stay only if Perrin keeps his promise. Perrin continues on and finds his men crouched with their halberds and polearms waiting. Harold Luhan and Abel Cawthon are among them. He then moves towards the south, the end of the village, where he finds Tam Althor readying more men for battle. Alana and Ivan are also there, and the Aes Sedai is fussing over one of the catapults. Perrin decides that he will fight at the north side of the village, as the north is the direction that Fael had taken out of Emond's Field. Bran is in charge, and Loyal, Gaul, and Shiad are with him. As they wait, Perrin contemplates all the familiar faces around him, everybody. Wick Conger and Hugh Marwyn and everybody. He's thinking about everybody who's there. And the list goes on, and he forced himself to stop reciting the names, right? Yep. Then Varen rides up, and Perrin tells her that he is surprised that she and Alana are still there. Varen tells him, "Could I only split myself into 3? I would latch one onto each of you," right? Referring to Rand and Matt, "and follow you every moment of the day and the night, even if I had to marry you." As they finish talking, there is a sudden shout of Asayam for thousands of approaching Trollocs. As the fights amongst the other Emond Fielders, he keeps reminding himself that Fael is safe and nothing else matters. The battle is raging with Trollocs and even Myrddraal falling to arrows and stones from the catapults. Varen makes her way from catapult to catapult, and everybody fights with everything they have. As the fighting continues on, the Two Rivers line begins to bulge inwards at a dozen places, and Perrin knows that if it breaks in even one spot, all will be lost. He shouts an order to everyone to fall back among the houses. A Trolloc attacks Perrin just as everyone begins to back up, but Aram kills it. As they keep fighting, Perrin... It's a sick moment. It's a sick moment.
Wow.
As they keep fighting, Perrin suddenly notices that the women are fighting side by side with the men. He sees Daisy Conger, Marin Alvear, Boadan, and Eldrin Cawthon, Nycia, Elaine, and more. All of them are trying to swell the men's ranks, trying to keep the line from breaking. Perrin knows that they are the only reason the line is still holding.
Real quick, that's 2 moments right there that are so epic. That, literally the White Cloaks haven't budged. They haven't lifted a finger. And the women saw that the lines were breaking. They saw what Perrin saw, that if the lines broke, the children would die. And they go to back their men, and they fight, and it's just so absolutely sick. I love this. It's a war. It's whatever. They're being attacked. Aram, a tinker who practiced the way of the leaf, was bad enough he picked up a sword. Now he's killed. It's just like, wow.
This is going to be an amazing episode.
Oh yes, yes it is. Yes it is. Yes.
It is going to be an amazing episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Perrin begins to wonder where the White Cloaks are. A boy runs up to him with a message. Lord Perrin, please listen. Master Althor says somebody's attacking the Trollocs. When Perrin asks who is attacking, the boy says he does not know, but that Master Alvir said to tell you he thought he heard somebody shouting, Devon, ride. The young boy returns to the other children. Perrin continues to fight until the messenger returns. The Trollocs are breaking. They're even shouting, Devon, ride. The men, I heard them. Perrin asks what the young boy's name is, and he replies that it is Jaim Abara. And Abara. is your cousin, I think, right? Like, sort of, anyway. And Perrin has to close his eyes against the tears. Saved.
Yeah. And a little Abara. All the Abaras we thought were killed and his family, and this is a distant Abara. And that new life, new hope. I mean, wow.
It's
intense, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's something.
The battle against the Trollocs has ended, and as Perrin rides through mounds of dead Trollocs, he sees Faile riding towards him. She tells him that she never promised that she would actually leave the Two Rivers. I said I would go. I did not say how far. All Perrin can do is look at her. She continues on, telling him that the Watch Hill men who she brought with her help in the battle were ready, and that she barely had to say anything to convince them to come. She is very proud of herself. You know, they followed me, Perrin. They followed me, right? Mm-hmm. Even Tenbaya has never led men into battle. Thinking that he is angry, she tells them that he has no right to be mad, but he cuts her and tells her that he loves her. They embrace. Faile's telling Perrin how afraid she was that she wouldn't make it. She then asks if the Devon Ride men came. Perrin wonders if she arranged that as well as the rescue from the Watch Hill men. She says that when the man came with the message, we are coming, I hoped that wasn't what it meant. She then asked him not to be angry with her, and then this goes into this kind of thing where it's like, she's like, you don't promise me you'll never be upset with me because it's a promise that you can't keep. Promise me that you'll always tell me when you are upset with me.
Yes.
Right. Kind of a thing. So then Perrin once again begins to pay attention to his surroundings. He sees many familiar faces emerge from the carnage, and all he can think about are the faces that are still there, not the faces that aren't. Along with the people from his childhood, he sees people he doesn't know, people who must be from Watch Hill and Devon Ride. And as he looks around, the White Cloaks appear, and this moment is, let me tell you, and everything we've seen so far, as crazy epic as it is, it's not even close to being as epic as this moment. The crowd begins to shout, no, you will not take him. Golden Eyes cheers are heard. Perrin becomes angry and tells Bornhold, I said I would not resist if you aided. If you aided, White Cloak, where were you? Daze Conger, of all people,
right,
steps forward and tells Perrin that during the battle, the White Cloaks stayed in the green, and that was what he had promised. Prompted the women to join the battle. Bornhold becomes enraged, saying that he hadn't trusted Perrin, and that his plan only failed because of the help that arrived. As some of the White Cloaks drew their swords, the two rivered men leveled their bows at children of the light.
Let's go.
Ready to defend Perrin and Faile. Eventually, Bornhold leaves, but not before prompting to one day see Perrin hang. After the White Cloaks have left, a group of 10 or 12 men approach Perrin. The man that seems to be the leader bows to Perrin and says that his name is Jarenvar Bastir. He says that some of his men will make sure that the White Cloaks leave if that is okay with Perrin, and that many people from his village wish to get home as soon as possible. He bows again, as do the other men. After he walks away, Faile informs Perrin that Bastir is the mayor of Watch Hill, and the Watch Hill Women's Circle will be sending a delegation down under the wisdom once they're certain it's safe. So first and foremost, then it switches to another point of view. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But the summary doesn't even the final summary there of the final talk between the White Cloaks and Perrin, specifically Bornhold, it doesn't at all do it justice. Basically, Perrin tells him to, how do I put this politely? Oh yeah, F off, buddy.
Yeah.
Is basically how it goes.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's so nuts, right? They stood there, and so he's accused of being a dark friend and fighting White Cloaks and killing them, and he says, "Fine, you can have me if you aid us." He thought everything was lost, and it's just karma. It just works out that, like, wouldn't you know it, you guys didn't raise a finger. You believed we were gonna die. You had no faith in us. You were waiting for it all to kind of crumble around, and then you were gonna kind of start to fight. It's just so ridiculous. And it's like, now, I mean, that's a sin against the White Cloaks, right? You didn't, people died. More people died than had to, because
you proclaimed to serve the light. You proclaimed to be the defenders against Trollocs and dark friends. And here you are.
You stood by.
You stood idly by.
Yep, I know. It's crazy. I think
they are not the shield that guards the realms of men.
No, they are not. Not even close. No. They are basically the group that harasses the realms of men and calls them all dark friends whenever they want to. So if you don't listen and jump when they tell you to, it sucks. Real quick at the end of that, I'll just tell you what, the Podon Fane thing, he's ticked. Podon Fane is wondering why the Trollocs weren't still coming through. He doesn't know that Loyal and that Loyal went and closed the Waygate, right? Mm-hmm. So he's pissed.
Yeah,
but
so after the battle, we cut to Podon Fane's point of view, who was still going by the moniker Ordeath, right?
Yeah.
And he has been standing on this hill watching this battle. And as you said, yeah, he's irate, wondering what has happened.
Yeah. Yep. But he laughs when he sees the banner of Manetheren. He comes up with an idea. He says he's going to go to Caemlyn and then to Tarvallen. So he still has, more plotting and scheming. He's got a small group of the White Cloaks who he kind of converted over to his will. He's something strange. But that's that. And then Perrin and Fael go into the Wine Spring Inn. And they go relax and celebrate. I mean, essentially,
yeah,
it's great.
That's a way to put it.
That's a way to right. I mean,
right, yeah.
So
yeah. Okay, all right. So now let's go back to Elaine and the girls, and Nynaeve and the girls. So I believe that means we will be talking about
54 and 55.
54, 55. So into the palace, right? So Nynaeve, Elaine, and Egyanan are on their way to the Panarch's palace. They are riding in a cart with Bale Dolmen and 20 of his sailors to accompany them. As they ride, Elaine thinks back to the discussion that led them to this in the first place. Upon deciding that she and Nynaeve must go into the Panarch's palace as soon as possible, Bale Dolmen, Julian, and Tom all begin to insist that they must go along to protect the women. Nynaeve eventually puts an end to this. You all know what you have to do, and you cannot do it trying to watch over us like a pair of geese for market. Egyanan then offered to accompany them. After a bit of arguing on Nynaeve's part, it was agreed. Elaine is jostled out of her when White Cloaks stop the cart to question Bale Dolmen. As they are waiting to move on, someone begins shouting that the Panarch is dead. It seems that this is part of some sort of a plan to start a riot.
Yeah. This is the chaos. They're going into the palace, and kind of to help us get through this a little bit, like, really the big takeaway is that the Black Ajah has wanted to cause a lot of issues. You've got a crowd rioting. Bale Dolmen's been telling them about this. The White Cloaks are there stirring things up. Black Ajah has put the Panarch forward, but now they've kidnapped her, taken her away, and someone else is being put forward. So it's just a lot of chaos. And they know, like, Nynaeve wants to get in there. It's about the artifacts. They're just trying to buy time and keep control, the Black Ajah, long enough to where they can find special artifacts that they've been instructed to get. Again, they're just working based off of different instructions. So yeah, and then so we get into the palace, right? So part of this is that we get into the palace. They go into a storeroom. They like disguise themselves as different, like workers in the kitchens and servants is how they kind of get in there. Bale Dolmen and his guys have to stay outside the crowds out there, and it's basically like keep everybody out of here, help with that, because Bale Dolmen has a crew of guys, and they're going to kind of help keep everyone out of the palace while they search the palace and find Amathera, the Panarch. They think that Amathera originally thought, is she a dark friend or is she whatever? In Teleron Riyadh, Nynaeve figures out that she's being held prisoner. So their third thought was maybe she's a prisoner, and it's confirmed in Teleron Riyadh. So they're going in here to find her, and that's Elaine's job. Elaine is going to go find Amathera and try to convince her to leave with them. So let me skip down here, like kind of the last paragraph, last two. Elaine and Egeanin demand to know if Amathera is alone. Amathera hesitates to speak. You are not with them. You are Aes Sedai also, but not with them. So once Elaine gets there, it's the big distinction, like, hey, we are not Black Aja, because she knows they were using the power. They were forcing her to do terrible things. And she reaffirms that, yes, we are regular kind of sisters, right? She tells them how the Black Sisters had made her sit upon her throne and speak the words that they told her to speak. So she's their puppet. She's just kind of doing whatever they want her to do. And then she adds that one of the sisters was the one that was set to watch over her, and that the Black Sister had hurt her for no reason except to make her cry. So it's torture. They're just not good at all. In her dream, she would hold her by her ankle atop the Tower of Mourning, and she was forced to learn lewd dances and filthy songs. So not good stuff. Amathera is convinced that what she must do now is to contact the Legion of Soldiers, and Elaine announces that she will... Amathera wants to do that. That's right. Elaine is not having it. She doesn't want her contacting legions of... They got stuff to do here still. So Elaine is like, no, we're not doing that. You listen to me, Panarch Amathera of Tarabon. If you try to walk out to your soldiers, the Black Aja may very well tie you up in a bundle and hand you over, right? They'll do worse to you than they did before. And so that's Elaine's kind of arc, going in, rescue mission to Amathera, and she's going to get her out. Now you shift to Nynaeve, and this is it right here. This is a big... So Nynaeve's plan was to go look at the Idom. She wanted to go try to find that. She finds some interesting things in here, and she comes across Moghedien. And I have to ask you, like, when you're reading this part and you know that like Moghedien is a Forsaken, did you remember the battle where they're just kind of facing off, they're squaring off against one another? Like, did it not just seem... I know in the show they're going to do a bunch of different like stuff with that to really make that seem, but it's just two women staring each other down, weaving flows. They're not really doing anything with their hands. I really hope the show has them doing more stuff to make it look more animated, because really, even in the book it's described that if you would have walked into the room, you would have saw two women just standing and staring at each other. And I think we're going to need more than that in the TV show. But it is a battle of wills, and Nynaeve is facing off against the Forsaken, and she is mad. And for her, she has to be angry to channel. Right?
She's like the Hulk, right? The more angry she becomes, the more powerful she becomes.
Right. Exactly. So real quickly, what she's in here, let me go over a couple of things that she finds. So she's at this pedestal, and it holds the black collar and the bracelet, and she has a really bad feeling around that. It makes you want to weep. I mean, it's just something that they're going to use to control Rand. And that's, it just has a really sickening kind of feeling. So there's that. Then, Moghedien shows up there. I think it was in here somewhere. I'm trying to figure out where it was. We find I better wait. We might not have found it just yet. There's one other object in here that's very significant that she finds, and we'll talk about that. I don't even know that Nynaeve knows at this point what it is, but she picks up something too that's kind of important. But the real thing is the Idom. She's there for that, and Moghedien walks in, and then they face off, and it's just this huge, huge battle. So let me just read the end of this because it's really, really important. So she and Moghedien are fighting. Nynaeve notices that Moghedien is trying to distract her by talking and saying different things. And the more Moghedien is talking, she's realizing that, oh, the reason she's doing this is because I'm winning. Inch by inch, I'm pushing her weaves back. I am stronger. She realizes she is stronger than one of the Forsaken. Like, let's go. Like, you talk about level, like powering up and like who's the most powerful, those kind of conversations. Now you have a marker for Nynaeve to say, Nynaeve beat Moghedien. Definitely. Straight up. Beats her. I think it's Moghedien's weaves falter slightly. Nynaeve is giving Nynaeve this opening to slide her shield between the other woman and the source. So she shields her. Nynaeve talks of torturing her, which seems to terrify Moghedien. She puts the collar and she puts the collar and the bracelet as well as the seal. There it is. I wasn't sure if it said it or not, but she has the seal. She found a seal into her pouch. Nynaeve pauses, and then one of the other, I think it's another one of the sisters, Black Sisters, shows up. Yes, with a Tarmon Gai'don that can produce balefire. She manages to jump out of the way in time to avoid being hit by the weave, but when she does that, the shield goes loose on Moghedien, and Moghedien gets away. But this person, let's not forget that carrying a fluted black rod, a Tarmon Gai'don that can produce balefire. What? Moraine says, like, that's not, we shouldn't be using that. Like,
right.
If that hits you, and by the way, this is a really good time to explain balefire one more time. Let's say Matt has just, he's in a battle, and Matt's one-on-one fighting somebody, and I'm over here, and I have that Tarmon Gai'don. And Matt's actions, if Matt, let's say, is in a duel with another blade master, blade on blade, and Matt makes a killing blow against the guy that he's fighting, but I hit you with balefire, like one little thin beam, it hits you. Whatever you had just done, like the longer I hit you with balefire and the stronger the beam is, the more of what you in the pattern will be erased. You're gone. But the person who you just killed, it would undo that action. It would be as if you never existed. So the person you just killed would show back up again, kind of thing. You know? Wild. It's wild.
And Moraine did it herself.
That's what I'm saying. Moraine does, like the Dark Hounds, right? She uses that on the Dark Hounds. It's crazy. It is just crazy. So
why don't they use balefire more often to just be like, can't we just erase this person from the wheel?
I mean, it tear up cities. It could destroy. I mean, it can cause ripples and rifts in the pattern that just, like, depending on how much of it you use, it can undo things beyond repair. Like, it's just
that you would actually end up needing, because who knows, getting rid of this person,
the
props
ripple
somebody
effect
else up as a king. Right. It's not worth it.
Could be. Yeah. It like when it's Dark Hounds, that's one thing. You know what I mean? But when it's other things, like that's not good. And Moraine has explained,
if you used it on like Lanfear, it's like, even though it's like, oh, we got rid of this Forsaken woman, right?
Yeah, and it's also not.
It's somebody who's so important in the pattern that it would like be the devastation would be like insane.
Well, yes, and so the other thing is why I said if you send a pinprick, and people can correct me if I'm wrong on this. Moraine has talked about this. You can send a pinprick of balefire at somebody, and it'll erase them from the pattern as of like 5 minutes ago, or as of like an hour ago, or something. It'll undo them.
It doesn't erase them forever, like
all of the
backwards and forwards.
Unless you send a stronger, like the stronger you hit them with that beam of light, that balefire, you could eradicate them from ever having existed. I think that's the way it works. Balefire always confused me when I was going through the series. So if people have more knowledge on it than I do, or if I got it wrong, let me know. But I think it's like, that's why that comes out, that rod comes out of there, and you've got like balefire and you're shooting it around. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Be careful.
The palace is being destroyed. Like, part of it is like the palace is like unraveling. Like, it's crazy. So that's the chaos that kind of allows Moghedien to get away. Nynaeve's like, I have got to get. When that is being shot at you, you get out of the way. That touches you, you're done.
You're gone.
Yeah. So
yeah. Okay. Whew. All right. Well, let's move on. Okay, so I guess to go forward, we must go back. Right? Because I think we have to go back to chapter 50, which is we're back to Cold Rock's Hold. So this is chapter 50, Traps. So things are about to get real serious here, right? And pretty epic. Whilst walking through the hold, Rand notices many things about the Aiel life. All the men wear the Caidan sword, although there are a slight difference between the warriors and the craftsmen, right? For example, a smaller belt knife or none at all. Young boys wear robes, like the guy Shane, except they are brown and gray, or the Caidan sword. Young girls wear their hairs in plates like Egwene used to, like except Rand doesn't realize that she wore them as a punishment. So he's just kind of seeing, hey, there's a lot of cultural stuff that's described in these next few chapters. Rand discovers that the Jindo have gone to the roof of his or her society here at Cold Rock's Hold, and that the roof of the Maidens is halfway up the east side of the canyon. The Maidens guarding the roof refuse to let him enter, but carry a message to the Jindo and 9 Valley Maidens from him instead. Rand knows that the Aiel have a love of ceremony and that gifts are often given as a thank you. He believes that if he gives Aviendha a gift in return for her teaching, then perhaps she will not hate him as much too as she hates him now. The maidens come out of their roof. Rand is not permitted to enter and show him several gifts that he could give to Aviendha. He decides on a wide bracelet of ivory, heavily carved with roses, presented to him by Aldine, a Jindo maiden. Aldine will not let him pay for the bracelet and assures him that it will not dishonor her. A ceremony is then performed when Rand and Idel, I don't know, take a sip of tea and utter "Remember honor." It is repeated for every Jindo and 9 Valley Maidens present. Rand finds Aviendha beating carpets outside Leon's house and gives her the bracelet as a gift in return for her teaching. Aviendha doesn't appear to want the gift, and Rand thinks she believes that it will harm her honor, so he tells her that the maidens approved. Aviendha tells him that if the maidens have approved of you, as if I still carried the spear, because they think that he is courting her. Rand cannot return the gift and reject the ceremony because that would harm her honor. They must let the maidens believe that they have already let them believe what they already believe. Aviendha then apologizes to him for being angry during the meal, though Rand thinks that Amis told her to apologize. So there's a lot of back and forth going on here with Rand and Aviendha, right? And so, they're going back and forth. Is it a forced apology? Is no apology? Is Aviendha there to spy on Rand? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's is she there to spy on Rand? I mean, she's reporting for the wise ones. The problem and what's upsetting about some of this is that Rand is suspecting everyone of manipulating and pulling him one way or the other, whether it's Moiraine. The whole series starts off with Balsamon wanting to join me type of thing. Everyone's trying to get him to do something different. Moiraine, the White Tower, the wise ones.
The dark ones.
His friend. Yeah, all of them. We talked about Lanfear wanting him to, he's a part of her plots and stuff. And then he's also a guy who he has his own plan. And what's cool about Rand at this point is he's telling no one what his plans are. Like, he's keeping everything real close to the chest, but he's just supposed to be learning from Aviendha. But Aviendha is, and she's teaching him. We're learning about the people through her. Something's going on between him and Aviendha. They're right. Definitely getting to know one another, and she's really protective of Rand and just who he talks to, and she keeps bringing up Elaine and how she's going to protect him for Elaine and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know, it's troublesome because he starts to, you think with the wise ones he might have a better relationship as he first gets here and gets close to them. But by them sending Avienda, he starts to kind of suspect the wise ones want to control him in some way. And that he's also a man who can channel, who is faced with going mad. He starts to see shadows where there aren't shadows. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
not that he has yet. That was just a people are like
right. Analogy. Yeah. Oh god.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Rand drifts off to sleep. And has an interesting dream, right? Elaine and Min are swimming here. They're in the waterwood, right? And tells Rand that he could not love both of them. He then sees Avienda on the bank, and she tells him that you do not know who you love. But he's distracted when he hears laughter from the opposite bank. Lanfear stands there and asks if she should allow you to be unfaithful to me even in your dreams. Rand does not recognize her, and when she tries to kiss him, he pushes her away. She then bites him because she wants to mark him as hers, but suddenly slips away from Rand when she hears another man's voice. Rand cannot see the man, only a blur, the rough size and shape of a man. The man berates Lanfear for risking their plans, but Lanfear sneers that you risk as much as Mogadine. The man says that he is tired of pulling strings on a puppet, and Lanfear is angry because she thinks the man is betraying her. The blur disappears, and then so does Lanfear, and shortly Rand wakes up. So we already talked about that just a little bit, right? Before when we were doing our Lanfear study. So, to go a little bit ahead here, Rand wakes up. He realizes he's not alone in the room. There's somebody else in there. It's Avienda. He stands up, and she says, I do not believe I will ever become used to a man channeling. Rand is angry at her because he could easily have mistaken her for an assailant and killed her. Avienda lets slip that the wise ones had meant to watch him for his dreams. Avienda was not allowed to help them because Sienna said it was too dangerous tonight. She doesn't really know why she is in his room. I could not protect you very well, but she is cut up by Rand when he realizes that it was a feel in the air, a sense of wrongness. Rand channels the sword into existence and motions for Avienda to follow him. As he padded from the room, he moves through the silent house and spots one of the Gaishin with a man. Rand thinks that Cheon is kissing the man, but when the man turns around, he sees that it is a Drakkar. The Drakk tries to ensnare him with its song, but the void dispels its effect, allowing Rand to kill it. Avienda checks Cheon for signs of life, but quickly realizes that she is dead. She has to throw herself on the floor when a bar of solid fire shot over from his blade to strike the chest of the Drakkar, just filing out, it's as it's leaving. Rand orders Avienda to wake the hold while he strikes the gong, the signal that the hold is under the attack. Leaving the warmth of the house, Rand sees Sienna's body lying on the path. She had no chance against the Drakkar. When Rand strikes the gong, chaos erupts and the hold as the Aiel prepare to fight. He can hear howls of Trollocs as he kills another Drakkar with the one power. Rand is joined by Ruark, who offers him a shufa, but Rand refuses to wear it because they hunt for me. They can't find me if they do not know where I am. Rand runs towards the battle.
Yeah, this is a strike against him. I mean, this is almost like he's either trying to be distracted or it's like an assassination attempt or something. And yeah, the Drakkar is a scary looking creature for sure, right? It's something that's sneaking up, giving you. It's not the kind of kiss you want, right? Not the kind of kiss you want late at night. So yeah, that was wild. And I mean, you really see Avienda level up too. She's really cool. And remember, she's a maiden of the spear, and she's someone who can hold her own. And so she's running right along with Rand as they go out to kind of face this threat. But what was this? This adds to sort of some of the mystery as to like what's going on around Rand, who's trying to stop him from getting to Alcar. Dahl, like, is someone trying to stop him, or is this just trying to take him out? Was this a weak attack, a strong attack? I mean, pieces on a chessboard. It makes me think, like, who's doing what? One of the things I'll go back to earlier on in this book is that Selene is a Forsaken who is there in front of Rand, and she suspects that this attack, the Gray Man assassin, might even be separate from the Trolloc attack. You know what I mean? Like, three different Forsaken might have been working to kill Rand or something at the Stone of Tyr, but weren't working together, if that makes sense. Like she's there, and there's an assassin. Oh, and who uses assassins? And then you also have this group of Trollocs being led in there as well. So
Right.
the Forsaken don't
she
seem
wants
to be
on the same page, and she
Yeah.
wants to, and well, you get that when she's talking to Balsamon and Lanfear. Clearly, I think in that conversation, it seemed like she was questioning Balsamon, and it's pretty obvious that she has her own agenda.
Yes, for sure. She does. Yeah, she is. She wants something from Rand. She wants to rule with him. I think she's one of those people who kind of believes that together we are smarter. We have a way in which we could maybe rule ourselves. It feels like a Darth Vader saying, "Together, you and I could rule the galaxy." Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So, yeah.
Okay, so there's another point of view in here, and it is Matt's point of view.
Yep.
Right. So Matt's pulling an Ashendari, right? Is pulling his Ashendari from the body of a dead Trolloc. He's angry that the pull of a Taviran to Taviran has pulled him in yet another battle.
Yeah, here he is fighting again.
Yeah. He looks around and sees that Moraine is healing the wounded and that more of the Aiel are coming out of their houses to help. A maiden tells him that you dance the spear well and comments that the Trollocs might have reached the hold had Moraine not been there. Matt points out that there weren't enough for that, but regrets it when the maiden asks if he is a battle leader among the Wetlanders. Matt walks over to the peddler's wagon and sees Ascendere. He tells her that the Trollocs have been killed only to have her slam the door of the wagon in his face. Angry, he turns towards the hold and sees Rand walking up towards him with Avienda. Moraine hurries up and tells Rand that the Drakkar were surely aimed at you, only to be told that he already knows that. She warns him that prophecy is most dangerous when you try to make it happen, and asks him to confide in her. Rand agrees to confide in her if she promises to stop manipulating him, and Moraine promises that she will do nothing to hinder you fulfilling your destiny. This isn't enough for Rand, so he refuses to tell her anything of his plans.
Yep.
Ruark walks up to the group and tells Rand that the Trollocs were only a diversion for the Drakkar and that he expects the Gray Man to attack soon. He tells Rand that that he should be protected at all times and that the maidens have volunteered for the task. Ruark also tells Rand that all of the Aiel will be on their guard in case the next attackers are 10,000 Trollocs instead of a few hundred. Matt asks if the Shido camp will be safe, and Ruark replies that they needn't worry about the Shido. Couladin and the Shido folded their tents at nightfall.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. And so to wrap that up, right, they are taking off. They are heading on without anyone else trying to get there first. And it's Rand who will say there to Ruark, it's time to go. We need to get there now in case anybody else is going to get there beforehand. And then they talk about Giotto and honor and like custom. And it's like, well, remember, this is the guy who breaks all the customs, okay? So he can do what he wants. You can bring up all these customs and all this kind of stuff and just, insulting different clan chiefs. But look, guys, it's time to get past that. So,
Okay, so now let's skip to chapter 47. So we did some bouncing around, but here we are. Breaking in the Threefold Land. So this is where things get really, really good. And I think for maybe sake of time, as we're pushing 2 hours here, let's just kind of talk about the last 3 chapters kind of all at once. The whole deal. So, well, I guess actually it's just the final 2 chapters. So 57 and 58.
yeah.
First of all, I loved both of these chapters because we were talking and we were like, okay, well, the parent thing is so big because he's like Emmons Field and the White Cloaks and everything, but it's like, how do we not talk about Rand? Right. I mean, what happens here? So, I mean, basically I can kind of give a quick just summary here is they get to the council essentially of the Aiel. And Couladin begins to proclaim himself as the Dragon Reborn, right? Or he who comes with the dawn, because he literally walked in as the sun is coming up. First of all, what a joke. Okay.
I mean,
right. And Rand basically tells everyone, well, I know what's at Rudion. I was there.
That's
and he begins to say some things that they don't want to hear. but sometimes you have to be faced with hard truths. That the Aiel used to be the Tinkers, or the Tinkers broke off. They used the Aiel,
the way of the leaf.
The Aiel have not always been great warriors. The Aiel used to follow the way of the leaf, and some people get upset, but Rand tells them it is what it is.
Yeah, he says, I saw the Age of Legends in the beginning of the Aiel journey to the Threefold Land. I saw the Aiel when they were called the Dashane Aiel and followed the way of the leaf. They know what that is, and they cannot believe it. All of the clan chiefs behind Rand look at one another and say, yep. Only clan chiefs, could talk about that kind of stuff, and and so they know it's true. They know it's true. The wise ones know. The clan chiefs know. And so Couladin, he gave him a chance to speak first. Go ahead, Couladin. Tell him what happened in Rudion.
And he doesn't know.
No, he doesn't know.
And he gets upset and he tries to kill Rand. Hurls a spear at him.
Yes, he does.
And Adolin steps in front of him and is wounded. And this is where Rand al'Thor goes off. He reaches for Saidin and begins to rain, something that has never happened in the Aiel Waste, ever. Yeah. And abruptly, someone forms a domed barrier around Rand, and it is Lanfear. She berates him for what he has done. Rand says that he has not expected Lanfear to reveal herself so soon, and when she seems surprised, he tells her that he knew from the day he left here that she was following him. He demands to know where Lanfear's accomplice is, and as Lanfear begins to speak again, of the two Sa'angreal with which they can rule the world, Rand reaches out for Saidin again and opens a gateway to Rudion. When she asks what is important in Rudion, Rand responds that Osmodian, yes, is there and leaves.
Yeah, so this is cool. This is cool. All right. I mean, the setup is that, like, when they spoke at this place, it could be heard, like, their voices can boom around here. The speaker up there, again, you have thousands and thousands of Aiel listening and who have come to hear this great report, and their leaders are high up on a cliff, like, talking to them, and it's just echoing out, and I mean, that is going to be an epic scene right there, right? That is epic. And the crazy thing is,
this is season finale, obviously.
Yeah. This is wild. This is wild. I mean, this reminds me of, like, like, this is such a weird reference, but, like, not the same way, but the in the Lion King when they're holding Simba up out over all the people.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of those things, except for it's more there are big walls that cause the sound to echo and for it to just be booming out there. So Couladin he comes forward with the dragon. Right, he's got the dragons. Couladin has dragon markings on him. So, and Rand is a little bit shocked. Everyone's sort of like, but Rand had them and Couladin didn't. They all were there to see that once upon a time, how did Couladin get these marks? And so, more on that later. But it's fake. It's all fake. And essentially, he's able to convince people of this truth. You start to see the chaos that takes place, these different clans, blood feuds. This is supposed to be a place of peace, and the Shido are throwing spears, and it's hitting the fan. And he's ready. He's causing it to rain, and he's ready to go fight right now. He's doing all of that, and then boom, Selene Dome,
right, Lanfear
caps him, or sorry, Selene. Lanfear caps him, and they start talking. They start discussing things, and he can't believe. He knew she was there. Where's your accomplice? What's in Rudion? The Choden Call. Talking about way back, Selene, when he was in the Great Hunt, was going to Cairhien, and the king was digging up one of the male, this big globe-looking thing, right? And Rand will think about them at the end of this book and how important they are. And he will go to... So I think the next chapter, we'll get into it. He decides to go to Rudion because Osmodian's going there for something. Osmodian wants something in that chapter, or in that city, to help him rule or to give him more power.
Right.
So,
so it's interesting. Basically, Rand, this portal opens and Rand just walks right through. I mean, he just basically, it seems like he can just place himself wherever he wants now, right? I can just appear anywhere, which is they kind of like undercut that in the story.
He just does it.
I mean, he just does it. I mean, it's not like, I mean, before he's like, it seems like he's kind of done some traveling that he is in the eye of the world, right? He does that. There's that battle, right? That he like somehow kind of appears in, and then at the Great Hunt, it seems like it's kind of happening beyond outside of his control, and everything else, like they've had to go to a way gate or whatever. And here he's just like, nope, I can just like portal stuff. And unless it's happened another time where he's willingly like just created, I can't think that he has.
Mm-hmm. No. This is definitely something new, and this is something that we are just, again, the reader's supposed to just trust that, all right, this is a new power. This is something new you can do, and we don't even know how he does it, who takes over. This seems to be someone else. It seems like Rand takes a back seat and Lews Therin steps forward because he's doing stuff that he should not have a clue how to do. You know what I mean?
And that is this chapter does feel like it's kind of hinted at and said a little bit. This is really a Lews Therin chapter.
Yeah, and that kind of comes forward, like, because Moraine is looking like, how did he do that? They're all astonished, but like some coolness, some evenness comes over him, and he just starts doing things that it's almost like automatic. No effort whatsoever. I'm just going to go follow this person. He's visualizing Osmodian, follows him on these silver kind of like plates that move through darkness, and it takes him. He follows Osmodian. He finds him, and they're there at Rudion together. He thought that he was going to be Kadir, right, the peddler. That was Kadir the peddler. He talked about his eyes and shifting eyes. He's astounded to see it's actually Jason Natail, who was the Gleeman who was traveling with the with the peddlers. And so he's a little shocked. Jason Natail, the Gleeman, is Osmodian. He's, shocked. So that's kind of whatever. But yeah, so then they get in, so they're moving forward. Let's see here real quick. So when they reach the plaza containing all the Tarmon Gai'don, Osmodian leaps towards a small white stone figurine of a man holding a crystal sphere in one upraised hand. He lets out this cry, but Rand's hand latches onto it a heartbeat later. They both reach through the Tarmon Gai'don, drawing saidin through it. Rand is faintly aware of a half-buried statue of the same figurine, only many, many times larger, pulsing with the one power in Kyrian. So that's the one that when Rand was standing in the Great Hunt next to it, and Elaine was next to him saying, "You fool, don't channel into that. You know nothing. Like, back off and let's go. Let's get out of here." And she then tries to phrase this, the King's men are going to come investigate us. But she knew he'd kill himself if he tried that on him.
Wasn't ready for it.
Wasn't ready. Yeah. So now they have what's called like an access key. He's holding on to this access key. This will give him access to that and help him safely channel it. And it's what Osmodian wants. So they are just wrestling and fighting, and then just, there's all sorts of stuff that's happening here. He's using all of his strength. And again, Rand is not trained. He may be more powerful than Osmodian, but at this time, he doesn't know what he's doing. Osmodian still has, even if it is Lews Therin, it's still kind of like there's a struggle going on in Rand. And he has to use every inch of power that he has. And he draws upon something special, something he took out of, I believe, the Stone of Tyr, the little fat man on Grial. Right? He drew just enough power to kind of inch out Osmodian, which is awesome. So he's able to kind of, beat him. He severs him from the Dark One, cuts him off, and so he's cut off there. And I think it's Lanfear who is watching the whole fight go down. Right? She's all of this, and she shields him. Shields Osmodian. Then you figure out all that she's wanted this whole time is for Rand to have a teacher. And she has been waiting for this. She's almost like, she almost stops Rand from entering a fight there with the Aiel and Couladin to say something else, like, like something else is going on.
Bigger picture here. So Lanfear appears, and she says, with these together, we can displace the great Lord of Dark himself. We can Lews Therin together.
Yeah, that's what she wants. She thinks with these objects, possibly that they could do that. It's just wild. So Osmodian wants help. Helping Forsaken, right? Rand tells her that Osmodian has been cut off from the Dark One, and her eyes widen in shock as she says that she had not thought it possible. Osmodian pleads for Lanfear's help. So it's not just that he's been... he still has access to the one power, to saidin, which is tainted. It's tainted. But he's been cut off to the Dark One's power. Whatever that is, he's been cut off. Lanfear is shocked. She didn't think it was possible, but he has been. And so he wants her help. And, Osmodian calls out. Again, he pulls as much of saidin as he can, not much considering how exhausted he is, and throws a weave between the two. The weave turns out to be balefire. I'm sorry. Let me back up. Osmodian uses Lanfear's real name, right? Which I always say wrong. Mirren. I think it's Mirren. Mm-hmm. She becomes enraged, and Rand is afraid that she's going to kill him. So he does something almost to like, not that she wanted to kill him, but it seems like she has a temper, and he hit a button for her, and then, was just kind of ready to go off and kill Osmodian. Don't ever mention my real name type of thing. And so he throws this weave between them, balefire. Rand asks Lanfear if she means to harm anyone in Al-Kardal. Lanfear wants to know whom he thinks she might kill. I thought you had realized you did not love that little farm girl, or is that the Aiel Jade?
Jade.
Yeah. Rand tells her that he simply doesn't want anyone to get hurt, as he still can use them. It's painful for him to say that, but like, I need to use them, Lanfear. Don't kill any of them. They're all my pieces, kind of thing. Almost like he's playing a game with her a little bit. She just laughs. Rand asks her which one she was, meaning which disguise had she been in the Aiel Waste. And this is when she reveals that she's Kylie. She's Kylie. She's one of the older kind of, like I said, she's not necessarily attractive, according to Matt and others. Older woman, heavier set.
Right, because Lanfear talks about like, if I have to put on a few pounds to, whatever, I can for a little bit, which is like a whatever kind of a line. So then this is where things get really kind of interesting. So Rand approaches Osmodian and finds another figurine just like his, only female. Osmodian tells Rand that Lanfear would rip his heart out and put her, and to put her hands on it, right? They start back for Al-Kardal using the same method to leave Rudion as they did to arrive. Rand tells Osmodian that they need a name that he can call him by. He had decided a while ago that he would use Osmodian as his teacher. Mm-hmm. They settle on just referring to him as Jason Ateel, Gleeman to the Dragon Reborn. And Rand tells him the first thing he wants to do is learn how to guard his dreams. Eventually they arrive at Al-Kardal. The rain has stopped, and Rand notices that there are approximately a fourth fewer Aiel than there were before. Moraine, Egwene, Aviendha, the Wise Ones, and Lan have joined the clan chiefs and maidens on a ledge. He is told that the Shaido have left, and as have many other Aiel who couldn't handle the revelation of the history of the Aiel, and that they all that are left are the ones who will follow Rand. And that is the Shadow Rising.
Yeah. So this is kind of cool at the very end. They're talking about all of that. Egwene, they're all kind of mystified as to all the stuff that happened. They're explaining what happened. Let me see if I can find just the last paragraph of this. So Rand looked back up at the people on the ledge, all of them watching, waiting. It will be a long road back. Bale turned his face, long and bloody. The Aiel faces did not change. Egwene half stretched out a hand toward him, eyes pained, but he ignored her. When the rest of the clan chiefs come, it begins. It began long ago, Ruark said quietly. The question is where and how it ends. For that, Rand had no answer. Turning the dapple, he rode slowly across the canyon, surrounded by his particular retinue. Aiel parted in front of him, staring, waiting. The night's cold was already coming on. The night's cold, right, was already coming on. It's cool. It's awesome. It's just really something that Lanfear is in all these different spots and has him kind of in vulnerable places. And she's got her own plan. She's very confident. She's very strong. Very, very, very strong. And he barely beats Osmodian. I mean, and again, I think it's untrained and Osmodian's, skilled. And I don't think Lanfear did know that access key was there, right? I mean, that's what Osmodian said. If she would have known that key was here, because she can't use the male key. So if they want to fight over the male key, go ahead. But where's the female key? It's right next to it, right around that area. But there's all this. You'd have to look. There's so many Durant Grial. It's just got lost. And wouldn't it be chance or something that Rand finds it, picks it up, keeps it, takes it back with him? So wild.
Woo. Guys, well, that is the Shadow Rising. Yes. The ending's pretty. I mean, the ending to this, I loved, man. I mean, the Perrin and the White Cloaks, and Nynaeve takes on a Forsaken, and Rand and Lanfear and the Aiel, and so things are heating up, man.
Yes, they are. It's awesome. It's cool, and you can see now that with the Aiel, he has a group of them. But I mean, he has united quite a few of the clans. Others will come. The Shaido, maybe not, but others have left, and he's really sent a major ripple through them, where some of them are broken because they have failed in some ancient oath, and that they feel like they have that by picking up a spear and by abandoning the way of the leaf, that in itself is dishonorable. You know what I mean? But their whole system is built on this honor code and tEotW. So it's one of those things, like we start to see the fracturing of the Shanchen culture, maybe the potential for it with the Adam and the Suldam and all that kind of stuff. And then you see the Aiel really up close. We're going to keep watching them and see what happens now that they know the truth. Not just the clan chiefs. Everyone knows now. The rumors.
Well, look at everything. I mean, and then we're going to talk a lot more about this in our extended edition. But I mean, just look at everything we've got so far, right? If in terms of preparing for the last battle, I mean, Rand is leveled up quite a bit, so as have the girls, as has Perrin. Matt, some of his stuff's coming. He's still talking. He still gets those like weird kind of visions, and he'll say things from like ancient language. But you think about what we've got. We've got Tyr united. We have Kalendor. I mean, it's hanging out, but we've got it. We now have a lot of the Aiel chiefs, and Perrin's united the two rivers, right? And Perrin just married Fael. By the way, we didn't really mention Perrin's dad. Big deal.
Yeah. So
Davrin Brashear.
Yeah. And so she mentions, like, even Queen Tenobia had not led men in battle, and so she was proud of that. Queen Tenobia is her sister, or her cousin, the Queen of Saldaea, and Queen Tenobia's uncle is Davrin Bashir, which is Fael's father. Crazy. Yeah. So a lot of cool allies and pieces that the Dragon Reborn can use.
Right. But you know what else has happened?
Yeah.
As this is the Shadow Rising, the Dark Ones have gotten a few things. Like, I don't know, the White Tower. So, I mean, pieces have been moving. Pieces are moving.
That's true. Citrus of Power, and where are they? What are they plotting? How many more are out there?
Right.
It's just ominous, sort of like, who else? Is because
said this. The White Cloaks, who at this point I'm ready to call the Dark Cloaks. They're the Turn Cloaks. There we go. The Turn Cloaks, as we can call them, have turned away from the light.
Yeah.
Seems like.
Yeah. That was wild. Yeah, so we'll have to see how these different groups change. It seems like there's a lot of change among these different countries and seats of power. You can see how quickly things can change. All these ancient customs and rituals and whatever with the Aiel people, they're all being broken. So it's almost like we almost get to know a little bit about it, and then we get to watch it break and watch it reform, which is wild. So, all right.
Okay, guys.
Woo. Yeah, so that is it for the Shadow Rising. My gosh, really cool stuff. I just wanted to real quickly before we're going to close out here. I just wanted to say thanks again to all of our patrons and everybody who has supported us so far. Again, Lord Zedley, thanks again for all the shout out and the message there on Patreon just about character examinations. We're going to have more of those. We're going to have tons more stuff. We got extended edition coming. We're going to talk about the whole book. We've got summaries that we're doing for the various books, character studies, all that good stuff. It's going to be on YouTube. Also, we've hit 500 subscribers.
500.
Let's go. Pretty cool for us. Small little podcast.
Yes.
Thought it's kind of cool. So if you wouldn't mind, go subscribe over there. We would love to kind of continue to grow in subscribers. And the more we do, we're going to make more content and things, which is just going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast.
Absolutely. As real quick, before we close out here, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, friends, you can find me on Twitter, mostly tweeting, and on Instagram at womprat_2m. That's where I'm at. I also do run the the Horn of Valir. If you follow at the Horn of Valir, that is our kind of Twitter account for this podcast, and I'm the one who pretty much runs that. You can send me messages there too if you feel more comfortable with that. But yeah, hit me up on social media.
Absolutely. And you guys can find me, Instagram, Twitter as well, YouTube at Super Gains Bros. So you can do that. And of course, as I said, hit us up at the Horn of Valir, Facebook, Twitter. We do have a Facebook group now. It is a spoilers group, so be warned. Some people have tagged me in posts, and I haven't even looked at them because I can't. But for everybody else, I hope it's a great conversation. So I will check them out.
It's been great.
I'll check them out in a couple months. So
right.
Anyway, so we want to thank you for answering the call. In our next episode, we will be discussing the Fires of Heaven, the prologue.
Absolutely. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a message at thehornofvalir@gmail.com.
We will see you soon, and remember that the grave is no bar to our call.